So what we can kind of impute from this is that House Valerian was kind of like a lower class family, working class, clearly like not bonded with dragons, not close with magic, and probably feeling a little frustrated by their position in Old Valeria, which is probably why they came to Driftmark in the first place.
Okay, that's good to know.
One thing I wanted to mention is just like Rhaenyra, obviously, like devastating blow. You find out your dad's dating your friend, but like, what a fucking walk-off home run for her at the end of this episode. She goes there. Yes, she goes against orders and was not like okayed to do this, but basically solves the entire fucking problem. Zero bloodshed.
Yes, she does.
What a mark on her resume as she is trying to build support to be queen of the realm.
Yeah.
Like, that is a great look for Rhaenyra.
Well, and she doesn't even have to be threatening, you know? Like, all she really has to do is show up and call bullshit.
Yeah.
And Damon's like, okay, you can have it back. Which I thought was super interesting. And I loved that scene, you know, when she comes in to talk to her dad and he's pissed and she's wearing this like super badass dragon rider outfit. It was just like, fuck yes, let's go.
Yeah. Oh, the Dragon Rider. Targaryen black,
so
baby.
good.
Like, it looked so good.
Yes.
Action black. Ready to get into it.
Well, should we do our death count?
Let's do our death count. Kind of light.
Yeah. No, there was one named character, but it was an off-screen death, which is, you know, pretty chill.
Right, so R.I.P. to Sir Ryman Redwine, who passed away again after a long illness. Tough stuff for him, and I think that is the only official death that we can count other than
a lot of
all
people.
The crucified people on Crab Beach.
Well, and I don't know if we want like a varmint count, but we also got our crabs and maggots this time around, which is just a fun thing to note, I guess.
Yeah, R.I.P. to the tip of King Viserys' finger. And R.I.P. to the friendship of Alicent and Princess Rhaenyra.
That's true. That's a
gone.
real legit death. Yeah, that's for sure.
Up next, we have a wonderful conversation with Emily Carey, who plays our younger Alicent Hightower.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this one, not just because I actually got to talk to Emily also, but because Emily brings a lot of really interesting insights into not only her process, but also her own career. Like, she's just a really smart, fun young lady, and it's really fun to talk to her.
Let's take a listen.
Everybody, we are super stoked because in the House of the Dragon podcast virtual studio, we have the very talented Emily Carey. You may know Emily as young Diana in Wonder Woman. She also played young Lara Croft in the Tomb Raider reboot. But now, of course, you know her as young Alicent Hightower in the HBO original House of the Dragon. Emily, welcome to the official Game of Thrones podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be doing another younger version of. This is probably the coolest one yet. I can't lie. It takes top spot. I just apparently look like a whole lot of people, which has worked out great for me, so I'm not complaining. But thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I think you can call that a win. We're very glad to have you. So how would you describe your character, Alicent Hightower?
There's so much to her, and I think I would describe her differently in every episode that I play her in, just because she changes massively throughout circumstance, through where people push her, points that people push her to. But when we first meet her, she is a people pleaser. She's very anxious. She's a rule follower. To play as an actor, something that I pulled on a lot was duty versus heart. For her, that's super important as to she's very dutiful. She has a very clear sense of right and wrong. And when feelings come into that, she doesn't quite know how to process and react and respond. She's very acutely aware of the world she lives in. She knows the Game of Thrones very, very well. She knows how these men play, but I don't think she ever expects to be one of their playing pieces. This just also comes from her being Rhaenyra's best friend, of course, Rhaenyra Targaryen. Besties. To begin with, as we all know, it might not stay that way forever and ever and ever, but they're incredibly close and they're always sort of put together. They grew up together. And so there's always this strange sort of power dynamic that they can't avoid, and that Rhaenyra is always that one peg up. And so Alicent just learns to observe. She's a keen observer. And I think that's all I can say for now. But as I said, her character arc sort of pushes her personality to change slightly as the series progresses.
You mentioned Allison and Rhaenyra being besties. How would you describe their relationship entering into episode 2?
Entering into episode 2, I think Allison is starting to become more aware of the implications behind her meetings with Viserys. I still don't think she truly knows where it's going. And if she does, she doesn't want to believe it, you know? And so there's a slight disconnect. And we kind of played around with the ambiguity of how much she knows. Because she's, as I said, she's so aware when it comes to everyone else and everything else. But when it comes to herself, that's where there's like a slight disconnect. She's kind of got this guilt floating around whenever she speaks to Rhaenyra. This loss of Rhaenyra's mother has brought them a lot closer together. I believe it's in episode 2. We have this beautiful scene in the Sept where Millie and we actually reshot that, I think, just because there was so much to it, and beautiful writing from Ryan, of course. There's this shared trauma suddenly between them, which is kind of where we find the girls. You don't see much of them before this trauma happens. And I think there's this emotional vulnerability that they share with one another that you just don't see them have with anyone else in the show. Throughout the entirety of this series, there's just something bubbling under the surface between these two girls, or these two women eventually, that they just don't have with anyone else.
Yeah, that was something that I found really striking in the first couple episodes of this series because, you know, I think it reminds me a lot of like that teenage relationship that a lot of girls have with each other that are almost like dating because they're just that emotionally intimate. I thought you and Millie both captured that really beautifully.
Thank you so much. It's something that we talked about a lot. I mean, as a queer woman, I certainly read certain queer undertones that I don't know whether Ryan Condal was thinking about when he wrote it, but, you know, I picked up on it.
Cool.
I think the friends you have as a young girl, especially at 14 of an age, your girl bestie, your best friend is like a girlfriend. You want to spend all of your time with that person. You think you're going to be best friends forever. There's this tactile closeness where you're very touchy-feely, especially as women. You know, we're allowed to change in front of each other, and we hug and we kiss and we hold in ways that boys, I guess, don't, which we need to change, by the way. It's not a stereotype that I enjoy, but unfortunately it does exist. But there's just this pure closeness where it does toe the line between platonic and romantic, because I think at 14, you don't really know what platonic and romantic is, what the words mean, let alone what the feelings mean. And so we definitely talked about it, and we definitely tried to play that in as well, so I'm glad that it read.
Absolutely. I mean, I just think, you know, at that age, feelings are just so big, you know? How can they not be? Let alone everything that's going on in this specific story. Like, oh my God.
Feelings are so huge, especially when you put them in the context of Westeros, when everyone's told to not feel anything at all.
Yeah, Greta and I were speaking before this about the ideal rule of Westeros. And I was saying, I think a licensed therapist would have the entire kingdom on its knees within an hour.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot to unpack.
So much.
The scene in the Sept is really fascinating in that you mentioned Alicent maybe not knowing quite what her father Otto's angle is, and you know what the various things she's asked to do necessarily mean. And in that scene in the Sept, you have these two characters, Alicent and Rhaenyra, really sharing things. Is Alicent in that moment, is she being sincere in this kind of like bid to reach out and share some of her personal history? Or is there also some element of Otto's kind of intelligence gathering mission in that?
I think when I was playing it, it was 100% sincere, but I can also see how it would read that there is some scheming going on, but I never brought that in. I never played that intentionally. If that's how it came out, then I guess that's how it